Knockdown Rule is in effect. I'm Steve Kim. And Mario, I'm seeing you way too often this week.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, I don't know about that. We're gonna have to knock that
Yeah,
off. To
let's
tell you
cut
the truth.
this out,
But
but-
this is gonna be worth it because
Very
I've been very excited and looking forward to our upcoming guest who came all the way from the UK
On a tram.
On a trip.
That's another story we'll get into later.
Yes, that was the voice of Sir Eddie Hearn.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Quick shout out to Justin Buffalo Knuckles
What's up,
on the
guys?
ones and twos right here. Thank you so much for taking the time to come over here. It's fight week. You have a fight tonight at the beautiful Forum here in LA, and always exciting to see you. I'm a big fan, and I love the shows and the productions you put on, and you and your father, after learning some history, that's just a fascinating. I love the family business, and it's just a fascinating business that you've got going on. But let's talk about the fights that are happening actually tonight. What can we look forward to?
Well, it's our first ever promotion individually as Matchroom in Los Angeles, so we're very excited about that. We've got a big card. We've got the rematch of the 2018 Fight of the Year, Rung Vasai against Estrada for the Ring Magazine WBC Super Flyweight Championship.
Excellent fight.
You've got Danny Roman from Inglewood, which we talked about earlier, against TJ Dehenny. That's a unification for the WBA and the IBF Super Bantamweight Championship of the world. You've got the Mexican War between Jesse Vargas and Humberto Soto, both multi-weight world champions.
This is a solid card.
Great
A lot
fight,
of
yeah.
action.
And then you've got some great fights even beneath that. Anthony Sims Jr., 19-0 with 18 knockouts against Vaughn Alexander. You've got Shakram Girsov, who you won't know about yet, but he's an upcoming sort of Uzbek star, going to be like similar Gennady Golovkin mode. He's fighting in a tough fight as well against Emmanuel Taylor. You've got Diego Pacheco, who's one of our 18-year-old sort of new Mexican stars making his US debut. He's actually from California as well. Austin Ammo Williams, who makes his debut as well. He's like a US elite amateur as well. Got a couple of Golden Boy fights on the card as well. It's a 3:15 start.
Wow.
So we're
Yeah,
going to be.
I'll be out there.
It's
I'll
a
be out there.
boxing palooza.
It's strange when we do shows on the West Coast because the main event's at 9 p.m.
Right.
which, like, in the UK would be unthinkable.
What
Because
are
no
they-
one's anywhere near drunk enough by 9 p.m.
So
that's
what-
the mentality. That's the mentality. You know?
What time do the fights usually go off in the UK? I never
So,
thought
like,
about
the
it.
main event would be 10:30, 11:15, just when everyone's nicely sozzled,
Right,
as
right,
we
right.
say. You know, like,
Sozzled.
because that's when you want the atmosphere. You know,
Sure,
and I
yeah.
think tonight we have a card where we will get that atmosphere because obviously you'll have a lot of Mexican fight fans. I mean, we did a show in Tijuana.
And they get sozzled
amazing.
right, nice
Yeah,
and
yeah.
early prior to walking
Exactly.
into the arena.
But we did a show in Tijuana a few months ago, Rios against Soto. I loved
Right.
it. I loved it because people turned up. They were so excited. They were drinking.
Yeah.
And like the culture, you know, we talk about drinking. We don't like encourage people to be like paralytic walking around, but
Right.
it is part of the night out.
Yeah.
I want people to dress up, show up, have a drink, have a dance, sing, chant,
It's a celebration.
shout. You know, and that's what they do in Mexico. You know, it's like it's in their blood.
Right.
And even like the people working on the TV productions. Like, I was looking over and I'll never forget there was this young lady and she was like a runner for Azteca. Probably get her fired now. And she was like under the ring apron doing a shot of tequila.
God
right?
bless her.
And it was like being passed around at ringside.
Right.
And I was just thinking, this is a crazy culture where this is a night out. This is a celebration. You know, we're having a good time tonight. And it's not just about drinking alcohol, but it's just about having a good time. And that's what we want tonight. And I think tonight we'll get that atmosphere because of the fan base.
I love looking at shows that you put on in the UK because they're very similar as far as cultures. They show up. It's a party. It's festive. It's fun. It's an event. And so bringing some of that. The tone of that and some of that charm tonight should be a great time.
I actually, sorry to interrupt, but what happened to me was many years ago, and ironically, it was Danny Jacobs against Dmitry Pirog in Las Vegas. And next week we go back to Las Vegas for Canelo against Danny Jacobs, and now I'm representing him.
Wow.
So, but I went to Las Vegas, and on the Friday night, I went to Danny Jacobs against Dmitry Pirog at Mandalay Bay. And on the Saturday night, I went to a UFC card at Mandalay Bay, which I think was Lesnar against Darwin or Carwin.
Yeah,
or whoever that
Shane
was.
Carwin.
And it educated me so much about the difference between the brands of boxing and UFC.
So smart.
When I
yes.
went on the Friday night to the Danny Jacobs fight, there were people there was a lot of empty seats,
Yeah.
but there were people sitting there in like baggy jeans and a t-shirt and sneakers with like foot-long hot dogs and a 4-litre Coke, just sort of in cinema mode, I call it, you know?
Right.
So it was like sit down, sort of maybe have a little sleep during the undercard bouts and then wake up, eat my hot dog and, you know, sort of have a baseball cap on, probably haven't had a shower today, like just rocked up at the fights.
Right.
The next night I went to UFC and it blew my mind. Women were dressed up to the nines, guys were wearing suits, people were drinking champagne,
They
vodka,
show
Red
up
Bull,
very early.
for the event, for the experience. So it's like, what
Exactly.
time's the door open? 6. I'm getting there at 6. Oh, who's on? And it's like, it's just about educating the audience, but making the sport sexy, if you like a night out, like a ticket you must have.
Right.
And that's what we've worked on in the UK for the last 8 years. And that's what we're trying to work on in the US. Very difficult because huge country, completely different markets. And that's, I know it's very basic, but one thing I'm finding out is LA is very different to Kansas, obviously. But New York is very different to Philadelphia. And what works in Manchester, in England, works in London. So it's about understanding the cultures, the audience, and the mindset of the people in different cities.
Eddie, your shows in America, I've always said you could put me and Mario in a main event, you'll get 10,000 people. This
Well,
show-
I don't know about
Yeah.
actually Mario, but we'd need a better big side.
Right now I'd be less than Jarrell Miller, but but in all seriousness, the show tonight to me, I could just say it in all honesty, all objectivity, it's as good a show top to bottom for a boxing fan on the docket, but it is struggling a little bit at the gate. And have you found out that it's tougher to promote in America because of all the other options? Like, let me give an example. Yesterday and throughout this weekend, the NFL draft, not the NFL games, but a bunch of players getting drafted is the biggest story in American sports, and it's dominating the coverage on all the networks. That's something you don't really have to deal with in the UK, is it not?
Yeah, that's a problem. I mean, Friday night's not ideal. I think, firstly, Saturday would be much better. I mean, I was at the Lomachenko qualifier. I reckon they sold about 7,000-8,000, something like that. It was a good crowd. But, like, if we did a Lomachenko fight in the UK, he's never boxed in the UK. We'd still sell 20,000, like, instantly. But you are right. You know, whether it's American football, hockey, baseball, basketball, you're behind those. But then you're behind all the college versions of those as well. So, you know, there is a very limited interest in boxing from the mainstream media. And that is a problem. And that's much more difficult than the UK. But I think it's just about what we're trying to do is go into these cities, it's going to take time, but we have to create a great product, give great value for customers. And I know they'll return. Like when we went to Philadelphia the other week, we had such a good show. We had about 6,000 in there. I know that next time we go back, they will all come again. And then it's about moving 6 to 8 to 9.
Yeah.
Then it's about showing the atmosphere and the passion on TV, where when people are tuned in or in the arena going, this is actually unbelievable.
But I agree with you, Eddie, because I still feel the product itself. And I'm an MMA fan too. But even as opposed to that, the storyline of the ebbs and flow of a potential fight, getting to know the fighters themselves, the fact that it's an individual sport, it's easy to understand the history behind it. I still think it can thrive, and it's continued, obviously, to boom here with all the different platforms. And it's just about the way it's marketed, the way it's you're educating the audience, and the way it's presented, which I think will have a huge impact here with the audience.
It's also about creating stars. That's the key. And
Right.
role models
You're exactly
and
right.
ambassadors.
Creating
Because
stars, right.
we've been very lucky in the UK. Although boxing was huge before Anthony Joshua, it's the first time really where there's a fighter where kids in the schools are going, I want to be like AJ. You know, parents like wives and housewives and even grandmothers are going, oh, I love AJ. You know, he's amazing. You know, everybody loves him, but everybody knows who he is. Over here, who are the household names? I mean, I always joke about Deontay Wilder and we have our beef back and forward, but he should be a national superstar, right? He's the world heavyweight champion. There was a time when that was like one of the most iconic positions in world sport. He is a good-looking guy. He's an athlete. He's exciting. You know, he speaks great. So if those guys aren't becoming... Terence Crawford, you know, another example. Well, they've done like 100,000 buys last week for the Khan fight on ESPN. He should be, and he's a pound-for-pound great fighter, but it is difficult. It's the promoter's job as well, but it's just the status of where boxing's at in the US, that these guys aren't household names. Because even with big platforms behind them, like ESPN, like Fox, they're still not becoming household names. And I think it's the job of the promoters. It's more about shoulder programming. It's about wraparound content, digital content.
Right.
To show the lifestyle of these people, the stories of these people. Because no one knows the stories. And you guys know better than anyone. Every fighter has a fascinating story.
Right.
Well,
Fascinating.
That's why the best
story.
movies
So
have
you've
been
got to tell
made.
it.
Exactly.
Eddie, we have a fascinating story about June 1st. Let's go back about 7 to 10 days. You got that dreaded text or phone call that I think all promoters hate to hear, that Jarrell Big Baby Miller had popped not once, not twice, but 3 times for PEDs. What was your initial reaction? And I sensed that it wasn't just disappointment. There's a little bit of anger on your end.
Yeah. Well, the first one, I mean, they came in 3 stages.
Yeah.
So the first one was, you're quite right, I think it was like 10 o'clock at night. I was just putting my kids down to sleep, and I got a phone call. And it's like, Eddie, are you on your own? I'm like, this isn't, and it's like, yeah.
That's never
So,
good.
yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
like,
Oh, no.
Jarrell Miller's failed a VADA test. I'm like, and I was like, kids, I need 10 minutes. Like, went into another room, just shut myself, and I was like, okay, learned about it. They said it's this advanced supplement that they've or substance that they've not really seen a lot of. You know, he can ask for a B sample, but you know it's not good. And now we've got to speak to the commission. I'm like, so you know, the first thing is, okay, he's more or less out the fight, so we've got to deal with this. Then we've got to deal with it breaking, because you know they send it out. And everyone's like, let's keep this confidential. And it's only a matter of time, especially in boxing, where this is all over the internet. Actually, Dan Raphael broke it. He was the first guy like an hour later. So then it was just dealing with the aftermath. Spoke to Anthony Joshua. He actually wasn't that surprised. He was like, wow, you're joking. Okay, who are we going to fight? I was like, well, who do you want to fight? He said, I honestly don't mind. Like, whoever wants it, you know, we can fight. But then from there, obviously, I had to let his promotional company know, Jarrell Miller's guys. And then he came on to me, Jarrell Miller, and just said, look, this is BS. I've not taken anything. I swear to you. Like, this is a joke. It's sabotage.
You believe
blah,
him?
blah, blah. I want to, like, I like Jarrell Miller, you know, and when you work with a fighter, you become, you know, I've worked with him for 5 or 6 fights. Like, I've got him in a position to give him this life-changing opportunity. So I want to believe him. Doesn't change the fact that the fight's probably off. But, you know, he does that. Then he issues his statement, you know, just want to say, I've never taken anything. This is unbelievable. I will clear my name, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, we request the B sample. But he had 4 VADA tests. The first one he passed. Then he had 3 more to come. So the second one he's failed. And in the next couple of days, we'll get the results of 2 and 3, or 3 and 4. Next couple of days passes, bang, VADA email again. The next test, he's tested positive for HGH, which that's another level.
Yeah.
I mean, that's you're talking about sticking needles in yourself, you know. And then we're like, I can't believe it, that cheating, bleep bleep. And then you know, then I was disgusted. And then 2 days later, the third one came in for EPO, which is so. This is probably one of the most advanced drug testing scandals I think boxing has ever seen. But I was really disgusted with him. One, because, you know, when you come out and you issue statements like that and you tell me that, you know, my kid's life and blah, 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 like, you want to believe him. And I do think that sometimes fighters fail tests where they're given something from an S&C coach, or maybe there's something in a supplement
Tainted
they didn't know
supplement.
about, or something like that. This was down and out, cold-blooded cheating. And what disgusted me more than anything was it's cowardly. Because this is the fight game where people have lost their lives. People can get damaged for life.
Right, you're not hitting balls here.
This is not a game of tennis. This is not a downhill ski slalom. The aim of boxing is to go in and damage your opponent, whether you like it or not. It's the sweet science, I know.
But
that's the cold.
objective.
Yeah.
Do you think you should be banned for life?
Yes, I do. And I don't really say that,
Wow.
but I'm at the moment, and I like to think that I've got forgiveness in my heart. Like it's a bit like when someone commits a crime and goes to prison. At what stage do you ever forgive them in life? Maybe it's subject to the crime. But as Anthony Joshua is a very close friend of mine, he was taking that stuff to do physical damage to him.
That's the difference. As opposed to any other sport, because you're right, it's a fight.
It is. And like he didn't believe that he had enough within himself to do that on an even playing field. So he was trying to get a physical edge. Now, what would have happened, when we signed this fight, every AJ fight we do has extreme VADA testing, right? It's the only way to catch cheats. Simple. So when we signed him up, I had to chase the paperwork pretty hard. And now probably know why. And like, it took me probably 10 days or 2 weeks longer than I would have liked, but we got it done in the end. It would have been so easy for me just to leave it, and say, look, it's Jarrell Miller. I think AJ's going to beat him anyway. What would have happened in that night? AJ has got no quit in him. right? So after 8 or 9 rounds,
Right.
he's gassed out, he's thrown the kitchen sink, Miller's still coming. He wouldn't lay down, AJ. He'd fight to the very, very end. You know, he could have, I mean, I know it sounds extreme. He could have lost his life.
Of
in that
course,
ring,
of course,
you know,
extremely
and then what would
detrimental.
have happened? The sport would
Exactly.
be over. You know, I would never be able to forgive myself. And, you know, I was almost joking. Like AJ said to me yesterday, he goes, God, like, that would have been a war. He goes, I would have, like, been just throwing the kitchen sink at him. And with that much stuff in him,
Yeah.
like, potentially he might have just soaked it all up and just kept on coming.
And
You know,
I
and
was
it's like-
I was so looking forward to that fight
know,
too. I was so
I know.
excited for that fight, and it's not a team sport. It's not a next man up. That's it. The
And
whole
Mario-
event's off.
And the only pleasing thing about the whole scenario is we caught him. So all this VADA testing that we do has been worthwhile because and not just about losing or getting injured in the fight or something worse, but everything that he's worked towards in his whole life, as in the titles, the Unified Heavyweight World Championship, could get taken away from him by a cheat, by
Right.
someone that doesn't deserve it. If
And
you
Mario-
get beat by all square, all fair,
You
that's
talk about
so be it.
chasing the paperwork. Last year, WBC, I think, dropped Jarrell Miller from the rankings because he didn't sign up for the VADA year-round testing program. That right there was a red flag to
Yeah.
a lot of people. With that said, you've had a good relationship with Jarrell Miller. I believe you've done his last 3-4 fights on
Yeah,
HBO
well,
and
yeah.
The Zone.
Mhm.
Is your relationship effectively over with Miller in your view?
Again, it's like it's probably too raw to say, but right now I really don't want to talk to him. I mean, he sent me a long message last night saying, I've watched all your interviews and, you know, I hold my hands up, but there's a lot of things about BARDA testing that I will come, you know, and it's like,
Like that they caught him?
yeah, but like,
I
I would
that works.
I would rather he came out and said, you know what, I wanted to win this fight so bad.
Exactly.
I cheated, and people talk me because I do believe people would have said this is fine or do this or
Yeah.
that's generally what happened. But just come out and be honest and say I shouldn't have done it. It was cowardly. Like I knew it was a tough fight. I really wanted to win.
Wanted
I
an
knew-
edge, whatever.
Yeah, and you know I did, but it's not like if he would have failed for the first substance, there could have been a conversation. But EPO and HGH, it's like you were on everything to try and win this fight.
Right.
You know, and how scared must you have been of Anthony Joshua? You banged your hands at the press conference. I'm going to do this. I'm going to kill you. That's what you told him.
Yeah.
You know, you abused his mum, his family, and now you've done this.
He also
I mean, like,
accused Anthony Joshua.
of taking pets. Yeah, that was the
Right.
best thing.
Right, so
Yeah,
that's,
I know.
there's
Yeah,
a certain
right.
irony there.
I
So
know.
moving forward, you told me as soon as this happened, this is the Anthony Joshua show, as
Yeah.
they say on Broadway. The
Yeah,
show
yeah,
must go
yeah.
on. Right now, okay, address the Louis Ortiz situation because they are telling people you lowballed
Yeah.
them.
Well, as we had a conversation going up the stairs, I said next week when we've announced the new Anthony Joshua opponent, which will be this weekend, I will expose Luis Ortiz and I will show everybody the exact correspondence. A lot of that has leaked out, and most people now are shocked at what Luis Ortiz turned down. So, you know, you could say, I mean, it was definitely 5 times what he earned to fight
5
Deontay
times.
Wilder, at least 5 times,
Wow.
right? And again, there's a lot of, you know, I'm not want to throw mud at people, but there's a lot of people saying, well, perhaps, you know, when you talk about cycles and cheating in sports, is not addressed to Luis Ortiz necessarily. There are fighters that when they're away from camp, not being tested, they are living certain lifestyles. Now that's allegations thrown towards many fighters.
Right.
Luis Ortiz had just under 7 weeks' notice for this fight when we first gave him the call. He asked for a huge amount of money. We were about 90% within what he asked for. And I don't know, because the first call I had was from his manager to say, oh, man, Luis won't be ready, but, you know, and then they come back about 3 days later and went, well, actually, if you give him this much, he'll take the fight. Now, I don't know whether they were just trying
He'll
to
get in
throw...
shape real quick.
Yeah. We're trying to throw... But 7 weeks, like, he only boxed in March. So it's not like, how out of shape
And he
can
doesn't
he
have
be?
to cut weight. He's a
Exactly.
heavyweight.
So it's
Exactly.
like,
Exactly.
you know, so he's out, you know, and I'll make further comments on that next week. But he turned down an absolute fortune for
Now,
that fight.
with that said, couple things. Do you believe because he's with the PBC and Al Heyman that he was ever going to take the fight or would be allowed to take the fight?
That's a good question, and that's something I can't answer. I don't know. I've been told that he's been promised the Deontay Wilder fight next,
Right.
and then Konaki has been promised the Deontay Wilder fight the fight after, which is very alarming for Anthony Joshua's hopes of an undisputed fight with Deontay Wilder, which is what everybody wants, and the biggest fight in the sport of boxing. But that said, Andy Ruiz, who is also right in the mix, is also a PBC Al Heyman fighter, not quite of the same stature as Luis Ortiz, but there does seem to be a desire to let him have the opportunity. And, he's someone we're looking at.
That's the name that I've been hearing, and he recently just fought. So he's, I was going to say he's clearly in shape. He never looks the part necessarily.
Yeah, that's one of the problems.
But he's an athlete.
No, he can fight.
But he can fight.
Yeah.
He's an athletic.
It's
he's sort of a dichotomy. He's an athletic guy, fast hands.
There's no question that is an as tough a fight, if not tougher, than Jarrell Miller. It doesn't have the sort of the beef that those two created between each other, but he has very fast hands.
Yes.
He throws a lot. He's actually quite an intelligent fighter.
No
It's
question.
Just aesthetically,
Right, no
he
question of
doesn't look the
PDs, I
best.
think.
No,
Use.
yeah. So, but I wanted someone, Mario, that there's so much money is such a huge motivator in the sport of boxing, and I understand that because it's a very dangerous sport.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted someone that actually says, I can win the world championship. I know I can. And how much is it? Yeah, let my team sort that out. But please, Eddie, give me this shot. I know I can beat Joshua. And he's one of the guys who is that guy. Like, I spoke to him. I like him.
That's
I
great
know
to
he
hear.
thinks he can win. I know he'll let his hands go. I know he'll make it a very exciting fight. It could be Mexico's first ever world heavyweight champion. Of course, there's a big Hispanic market as well. So it's probably between about 3 guys, but he's right in the mix. And he's fit, having coming off a fight. He's ready. He's in training. I like the way he talks, but he believes. He believes he can win. And I don't want Joshua's debut in New York. And it is the Anthony Joshua show. Yeah. But still, we're not going to take the mickey out of fans. We've sold 17,000 tickets already. We're not going to just put a guy in that's going to go one round or not try. Right. We want someone live. And Ruiz is live with fast hands. And it's not a great style for Joshua, to be honest with you.
Right. It's a tough
fight. Smaller guy who's got fast hands who wings him in. So, but, he wants a real fight.
That'd be a fun fight. When do you plan on announcing?
I think this weekend we will make an announcement. So it's Ruiz, it's 2 other guys as well. I mean, Michael Hunter's in the mix as well. He's former cruiserweight who just lost to Alexander Usyk. He's the only loss on his career. He has 2 heavyweight wins. Don King's been phoning me round the clock for Trevor Bryan, who doesn't really have the credibility.
Come on now, Eddie.
But it's like, I've got to say, right, the first...
Don King, wow. I get amazed that he's still alive.
This is like, you have to respect the hustle, right? Because the first call I got when Dan Rafael broke this story was from Don King.
Wow.
Right? He's like, what, 88, 87?
Right.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So he's, Eddie, I know, I feel your pain. I'm going to help you out right now. I'm going to be your savior. Like this, I'm thinking.
Awesome.
Well, and even yesterday, he phoned me. He's like, you haven't returned my call about Trevor Bryan. I'm like, you know what, Don? I know, 24-0 from New York, in good shape, #1 in the WBA. He's ranked 12th best heavyweight in America. Joshua's beaten Eric Molina. He's beaten Dominic Brazil. He's beaten a lot of American fighters, and they're way ahead of this guy. But then Don gets me for 5 minutes about the people from New York and me. I will be there with my flags. I'm like, and
flags are big.
And I start thinking about it, and I'm like, maybe we should go with Trevor Bryan. And I'm like, wake up. And it's like, no.
Now, hold on. There's a heavyweight that you've mentioned that I know you've had meetings. You've had a very interesting public relationship with him and Shirley Winkle, Lou DiBella, Al Heyman. When Deontay Wilder actually met with the Zone, did you really think that there was a realistic possibility of him jumping ship?
I thought it was done.
Really?
Honestly. I mean, we had John Skipper, obviously, who's former ESPN, now running the Zone. He is very, very good at closing deals, right? And there needed to be a middleman between Team Wilder and Team Joshua because the relationship was that bad. One of those problems was them, and one of those problems was me. Like, I'm learning in America that the banter and sarcasm is a little bit different to the UK. So this guy, Shelley Finkel, who is an old school advisor, he upset me with a few things he said. So I started calling him Shirley Winkle.
I know, that's funny.
And it drove, when I say lost the plot, people were phoning him up, media, calling him Shirley Winkle by mistake because everyone was synonymous now. He's no longer Shirley Winkle.
You were like Trump, give away the nicknames.
Yeah. So I almost felt bad. And then it's like every interview, he keeps calling me Shirley Winkle. This is so disrespectful. I'm like, I'm joking, bro. Don't worry. Just get this is all about the build to the fight.
Sure.
But they took it so personally that the relationship just broke down. So when John jumped in and said, look, they don't like you.
No.
Right, you don't really like them. I said, I don't not like them. I'm just having a bit of fun.
Yeah, right.
So let me go in, and this is what we're going to do. We had a meeting an hour before that meeting. These are the numbers we're going to offer. I'm like, I remember speaking to my dad. I'm like, this fight's happening.
It's going to happen.
I said, he can't turn down this money. No way. I said, this is and then they came out and It's like, yeah, it went okay. I'm like, oh, is he in? He's like, yeah, I don't know. And then a couple of days later, obviously announced that he was fighting Brazil. And they were like, no, it's not happening. We're like, wow. Like, fair play to Wilder, because like the money that he actually accepted a deal from us until he decided not to sign a contract probably 6 months ago, it was like a third of what he was now being offered. And that offer probably will increase.
Right.
Like, but at what stage does someone get beat? I mean, Ruiz might sling a big left hook and knock Joshua out. What? Brazil might chin Wilder. And so like at some point you have to bite on these numbers.
But
and I thought that would be it.
But do you think it was his decision?
Ultimately, I mean, I know, you know, where you're going with the question of, you know, is it? I think a lot of people, there are too many people in boxing that make decisions to benefit themselves and their business rather than their client or their fighter.
Right.
So, like in that instance, it's like the PBC couldn't really afford to lose Wilder and take him from their broadcast partners because it would affect the business of the PBC. That really has nothing to do with Deontay Wilder. Like, if you're advising someone, your job is to do the best job for your client. So they may have had a deal in place or a plan in place that could counter or even better that offer. We don't actually know. I don't think so. But, you know, at the end of the day, for that kind of opportunity, and if it meant Joshua, like if Showtime come along or Al Heyman come along and said, right, here is the deal for Joshua. It's, I don't know, 80 million, 90 million, 100 million, and this is how it works. There comes a point where I can't, you know, I don't want Joshua to come off the zone,
Right.
because that's where I think, you know, they're going to be invested in. But if that opportunity arose, I'd say, go on, mate.
Yeah.
Like the key is to be undisputed champion. For me, money's great, and Joshua's got a lot of money. You know, we got a successful company, but the pleasure and the joy of seeing him becoming undisputed heavyweight world champion beats any money. Like we took this kid from. Now I went down Sheffield amateur gym. I spotted him hitting a heavy bag, like 10 amateur fights in. You know, 20 fights later, he got robbed of a gold medal in the World Championship. 3 months later, he won Olympic gold. Then we signed him from the debut. So we took him all the way, you know, to the Klitschko fight at Wembley, to, you know, the MSG debut. The only thing we want is to be undisputed world heavyweight. And it's of course he has to have the right deal, but it shouldn't get in the way. And Wilder must want the same. And I do believe he does want the same. Like every fighter wants to be undisputed.
I was at the Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder fight, and going into the 12, I thought Fury did an excellent job of boxing. I actually thought he still probably pulled the fight off. Had he been victorious, would that have been an easier fight to be made?
The Fury fight?
The Fury fight?
Yeah, probably. I mean, all these guys want 50-50 with Joshua, right? Which, you know, in the end, maybe that ends up happening in a year or like 80, because if you stick on your morals and there's no way out, maybe Joshua gives it to him. But you can't, you know, when you look at the earnings of fighters, and some fans say to me, well, why don't you just give them 50-50? It don't really work like that, you know, in life. It's like me going to you in a job that, you know, you feel like you're being massively devalued in.
No, you got to be realistic with your value.
Just take it, because the viewers say you should take it, and they want you on the show. Okay, you haven't worked your whole life and given the sacrifices that you've given. Like when Joshua boxed Charles Martin for the world heavyweight title, we paid Charles Martin a lot of money. Joshua took peanuts, right? And I said to him, trust me on this. You will win this, and it will take us to where we need to be. So you can't keep saying to a client or a friend, like, we will, you know, and then when you get there, you go, oh, you've got to take less now, mate. Because you said, well, I remember when I was boxing the Charles Martin fight, and even in the Klitschko fight, you know, he gave Klitschko 50-50 at the time. And I said to him, it's a voluntary defence. Like, so really, you should be getting a better deal than this. He won't take the fight without it. I believe you win. And when you win, I believe your value rockets to astronomical levels.
Right.
Okay, I believe in you. So how many more times, like what do you do now? You go back and say, Josh, like, you give him 50-50, because when you win this, he's like, well, I did this every time for you. And now, surely I'm in a position now, earning, you know, 2-3 more times, having 3-4 belts if you include the IBL. Like, surely I'm the A-sider, so I should be getting. And I think, you know, 60-40, which is a number that we've spoke about, we've offered, that's an unbelievable deal for Deontay.
Incredibly fair, and there's no debate, or there shouldn't be, as far as Joshua's star power and being the guy, especially in the heavyweight division, and his track record proves that. How is Fury received in the UK? Good.
He's like a cult hero. Like, he was extremely unpopular I say extremely he had a very solid sort of hardcore fan base prior to the Wilder fight. But you know, he had his drug problems and he failed a PED test as well and stuff like that. So
did that hurt his?
Yeah, it did massively. But what he did was, when you talk about characters and personalities, his vulnerability and his openness is extremely endearing. So he talked about his mental health problems. He talked about his drug problems. He talked about all these things, and he was that open that it was quite an inspiring story. He got so out of shape. I mean, this is a guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you guys do it in pounds, but you know, I don't know. He was 350 pounds. I mean, he was that big. He was 27 stone.
Like 100 pounds overweight,
and it wasn't like, you know, he was a big guy. He was just pure slobbery. Right. He gave up on he gave up on life.
Another
right.
And
he gave up life. Right.
I talked about signing him, and I met him. We had an event in Monte Carlo, and I looked at him and I thought,
"There's no way
you'll never fight again, mate."
Right.
And what he did to get back in shape was massively inspirational. You know, not just for people with weight problems, but for athletes that have lost their way. And to even get back in the ring from where he was an incredible achievement. And time again, people have written him off. Like, I still kind of think he's not that good, you know, but he must be, because when he boxed Klitschko, I thought he has absolutely no chance. He bewildered Klitschko mentally and emotionally. And I will say, look, Fury's not the most entertaining fighter unless he's in with someone like Wilder.
He's effective.
He's going to fight Schwartz. It's going to be an absolute stinker, right? Because he's like, you know, he's awkward.
He's jittery. He's awkward. He's athletic. No, he looks like a bag of milk.
Yeah, I know.
But he's athletic.
Oh, he's brilliant.
He's jittery,
Yeah,
and the way and I was like, wow, he's sort of.
But he's clever.
Fascinating
He's
to look at.
very clever.
Yes.
But he's a fascinating character. Now his popularity in the UK is massive. I mean, turning down the Wilder rematch and fighting Schwartz hasn't gone down well with the UK public, because they're like, yeah, you've got the rematch. You know, when the WBC ordered it, the public were like, you got it. You're going to get him this time. Oh, my God. You're going to get what you deserve. And he's like, turn that down. I'm going to fight Schwartz. And the public are like, huh?
Wow.
And that was
does the Joshua Wilder fight, is it bigger business than the Fury?
Globally, much bigger.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, Fury against Joshua, still big globally. In the UK, like, the country would shut down for that fight. But globally, the undisputed heavyweight world championship against Wilder is
Eddie,
a big. It's the biggest fight in world boxing.
Yeah.
So
with
that said, there's 3 heavyweights that matter. Your guy, Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury. I think people want to see some sort of amalgamation of those fights. How does the heavyweight division play out within, let's say, the next 12 to 16 months? And when do we start seeing these 3 guys mix it up?
Well, I think one of the problems is, and it's a problem for boxing, is you could find that all 3 of those guys have exclusive deals with other networks. Right now, the only one that has an exclusive deal is Tyson Fury. So he's the only one at the moment that can't really box on DAZN or can't box on Showtime or Fox. With AJ, we're fight by fight with DAZN. The plan is 100% to be long term with the DAZN platform, and I do think that will happen. But it has to be a deal that doesn't stop, because really, like, Joshua wants to achieve, like, again, it's not really a money thing. He doesn't want to keep having voluntary defences and mandatory defences. He wants to test himself. That's one of the reasons why when Jarrell Miller pulled out of the fight, or got pulled out of the fight, he wanted Luis Ortiz. The trainer said, mate, you got 4 weeks sparring left. Like, we've been sparring 5 weeks for a big, heavy, orthodox fighter. Now you want to switch. Yeah, it was like the challenge. And he doesn't want to go stale. He only boxes twice a year. So he wants the challenge. One of those challenges might be Alexander Usyk later on this year, which is a very, very tough fight for him. But he definitely wants, you know, that undisputed fight. So whatever deal we do mustn't stop those fights from happening, because he will become stagnant. He will become unmotivated or demotivated, and you may lose in a fight that you shouldn't lose in. So that's very important. So really, we need to get those fights. This summer is very important for particularly Wilder and Joshua to get those wins. Fury, we know, will win.
Yeah.
But after that smoke clears, that's when it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. And that's where we have to put the ultimate pressure on Wilder and say, now, it has to be now. You know, Fury, I don't think Fury's in the mix, really, for Joshua and Wilder. I think more importantly, those 2 are either going to fight each other, as in Joshua and Wilder, or everybody will fight someone else again. And hopefully that doesn't happen. Listen, unless, I mean, Wilder-Ortiz rematch isn't the worst story in the world. Joshua Usyk is a great fight. Fury, I don't know, Dillian White or something. As long as they're good heavyweight fights, but ultimately people are going to get bored. And we talk about the growth of the sport. And, you know, I heard Dana White come out the other day and say, oh, this is a joke. I mean, why don't they just get it on? It's a very different business structure to the
Right.
UFC. In UFC, you're told what to do.
Right, he
You're
monopolizes
owned
the
by
whole-
the business.
Exactly.
So, like, basically, you go, right, Mario, you're fighting Steve. It's July the 30th. Good luck, mate. See you there.
And that's it.
And that's it. And you
Yeah.
don't go, oh, no, actually, I don't want that fight. Or what about this guy? It's like, no, that's who you're fighting. Be quiet.
Exactly.
You know, boxing is completely different.
And
These
that's
guys-
why they have problems building stars.
Yeah, it is. And that's why eventually you'll get to a stage, they don't really want stars, or they don't want them to
Right.
get too
The
big.
brand.
Yeah,
Right, it is
because
the
Conor
brand.
McGregor causes them nightmares and major problems
Right.
because he is the UFC.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, now that's so they can't afford to lose him. Then they get snookered in positions. But in boxing, say unfortunately on the business side, fortunately for the fighters, they are their own brands and they make their own decisions. Sometimes it can have a negative effect on big fights getting made, but it's good for the fighters that they have that freedom. But they've got to want it, and the teams have got to want it, and we have to publicly put the pressure on. Hopefully, when Joshua knocks out whoever it is on June 1 and says, "How many times? I'm in New York,
Right.
right? I'm here."
I-
Wilder.
I think that's gonna
now's
be
the
a huge
time.
moment.
And that's that will be, and hopefully he'll be there, and but like, imagine the excitement of that fight. Like that is a fight that you watch through your fingers. You will sell every seat in the venue, but you'll only need the edge of it because
Right.
you will just be watching it. Anything can
Yeah.
happen. Fast, heavy-handed, slightly vulnerable. I'm talking about both of them.
Of course, absolutely.
Like no step
Yeah.
backwards. Like you could run that 5 times. There'd probably be 3-2.
Eddie,
You know.
are you still insistent that the first fight be in the UK?
No.
No.
No, and actually, I'm early on. We felt that Joshua had built such an amazing industry, if you like, in the UK with boxing that we deserved to have that first fight in the UK. I still think that.
Still, see,
Right.
it
Yeah,
seems like it would make the most business sense too.
No, well, probably
Oh,
because
not
of
because the
time
pay-per-views.
zone.
Oh, that's
Casino
true.
money.
That's true.
Casino
That's true.
money changes
yeah,
things.
That's true.
But
That's true.
definitely in size of gate.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we'd do 100,000 like literally in 5 minutes. That would all go for that fight. But now we're giving so much. Like at first, Joshua really didn't want to give more than 70-30. Then it's like, or actually, he offered a flat fee at first. Then it was like 70-30. Then it was 65-35. Now we're talking 60-40. Now it's, I'll tell you what, we'll do it in America. Like at some point, like, you can't have 50-50 and do it in
No,
America.
no, no.
Like,
That's more than fair.
I know. So it's like
We need
it's
to tell Shelley
frustrating,
Winkle.
But yeah. But the problem is in America there is more money for that fight than the UK. But this is Joshua's debut in America. It's a big moment for him. And actually, whoever we select will be a tough opponent. But it's more about the new environment.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy. Madison's like he's used to Wembley Stadium, 90,000 people. He knows the changing room. He knows the British Boxing Board of
Right.
Control. He walks out, everyone's going mad. Tap him on the back. This is your manor. This is your home. Now he goes into a new time zone, different arena, different ring, new commissions, different hand wraps, and everything's a bit. That's my biggest worry in the fight, not his ability, but just the new surroundings.
Sure.
And a live challenger, who's actually saying, "Oh, I'm coming to win it." So, but that's exciting.
It
and
is
that's why I
exciting.
want a live fight. I don't want to be sitting at ringside going.
I think he's
How
going to
that-
have
yeah.
a great coming out party, and I think he's a star.
Yeah,
So
but
I
that's a
think-
big moment for his
Right,
career.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's going to, and we'll have a lot of clarity, hopefully, like you said, this summer. Something I'm really looking forward to, which I'm going to be at too, is the Danny Jacobs
Oh,
versus Canelo fight. And this is why you signed up for DAZN. And this is exactly the reasons why it makes a lot of sense. You're getting your money's worth. And this is a fight that came just, I think, at the perfect time, and obviously on a very popular date where a lot of these big events happen. And this is a real fight.
It is a real fight.
A fun fight, a great fight. How has the transition to DAZN been, and how are you looking at this event for the first time of this magnitude?
Yeah, well, this
happening on
is a
platform?
massive moment for DAZN.
Right.
Because we're 6 months in, 6 months, 7 months. We've acquired some unbelievable talent on the platform. Anthony Joshua, Alexander Usyk, Danny Jacobs, Canelo Alvarez, Triple G, Demetrius Andrade, Tevin Farmer, Saul Rungvisai fighting tonight. I mean, like Maurice Hooker. Like, there's big names who join the platform. But when you're selling a product like DAZN and saying pay-per-view is dead, this is the future, no more pay-per-view money, you have to provide the pay-per-view fights.
Right.
It's all very well saying, and the content, even without Canelo Jacobs, the content's amazing. But this is the first big pay-per-view fight that DAZN have put on. They had Canelo Fielding, they had Joshua Povetkin, but they're
Right.
just real solid nights. So
This is the fight where guys like my dad say, "Oh,
exactly.
okay."
This is an 800,000 buy pay-per-view on HBO. Those kind of numbers.
Right.
So this is a massive moment for DAZN where they're saying this is a $90 pay-per-view on HBO. Like, you don't have to pay that. You could actually pay that and get a year's subscription with DAZN virtually now. You know, it's a monthly payment. So the fight itself is something I'm so fascinated in because you know, I signed Danny Jacobs 3 fights ago, and he was one of the first guys that sort of took the leap with me. You know, this guy coming over from the UK, and at the time I got him a deal with HBO. We started doing shows on there, and then HBO went out of boxing, and Canelo signed with DAZN, and I thought, wow, this is a real chance for Danny Jacobs. I didn't think Canelo and Golden Boy Promotions would take this fight because I think it's a massive banana skin for them. John Skipper done a great job where he sort of come in and said, no, guys, this is the fight. It's the unified fight. Golovkin's not available. It's the only fight out there. And he put it all together with us and with Golden Boy. Danny gets his chance. I've never been more confident in a 50-50 fight of our guy winning because I think styles make fights, but beyond that, it's kind of like this. And I know like good vibes and stuff like that don't win fights, but it's almost like spiritual, everything Danny's been through in his career and, you know, beating cancer and told he'd never fight again. But he is very, very good. And all this combined, I just really believe he's going to beat Canelo next weekend. And I'm so excited about the fight because it's a brilliant, brilliant fight for DAZN, for the fans, and for the division. 2 great champions unifying.
Absolutely. How's he doing with the weight?
Really good.
He's a big guy.
He is, but
for
people
that.
talk about, you know, the weight. I mean, I actually got a message from his manager, Keith Connolly, just before I come in with a WBC check weight, a 7-day check weight coming in.
Right.
He's like, I don't know, £3 over the limit,
Oh,
or something
wow.
like that, £4 over the limit. So he's good.
Wow.
I mean, that would be just after training. You know, he's going to refuel and stuff like that. Canelo requested in the agreement a rehydration clause at £10 on Saturday morning. There's just this idea that Danny can't do this, and what happened once was he boxed Gennady Golovkin, okay, in an IBF fight.
I was there,
and he
yeah.
refused. He just said, I don't want to do the check weight. You know, I've got my world title.
Right.
I'm not going to do the £10. And it wasn't that he couldn't do it. He just decided, you know, it's not ideal, but it's not going to hurt him. 8 o'clock in the morning, you know, he'll put £12 on, £13 on after the weigh-in. He'll wake up in the morning, he'll be £10, and then he'll refuel again. Probably put another 8 or 10. He'll be massive in the ring next weekend. He'll probably be at least 8, 9, £10 bigger than Canelo. That doesn't mean a lot if you're sluggish or if you're slow, you know, but the size is going to make a big difference in this fight. You've seen with Canelo, he struggles against movers as well. You know, the Lara fight, things like that. Danny can move, but he can stand in a pocket, he can punch. And we've seen that against Gennady Golovkin in his performance. But the confidence levels of Danny Jacobs now just are on a new level. And I'm just like, it upsets the apple cart of boxing so much if Danny wins. And I'm really excited about that because I know that if Danny wins, I'll look around ringside. People will be throwing up, you know?
Yeah, we know which ones, Eddie. We know which ones, but Eddie,
yeah.
we know the history. It's very difficult to beat Canelo on the cards in a relatively close fight. The selection of the 3 judges was announced a couple of days ago. Are you satisfied?
I'm very satisfied. You know, we spoke to the Las Vegas Commission. They sent us through lists of officials. We had to go back with our not our choices, but ones we didn't want to
Adelaide
officiate.
Bird.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
and a number of others as well. And we had to give our reasons, multiple reasons for many people. For me, Moretti and Feldman and Weisfield are probably 3 of the best judges in the
Top
sport.
notch.
I mean,
Yes.
actually, they did score. They're the same judging panel that gave Canelo the last fight, right? They're exactly the same panel. And it was a close fight. Like the last one was a lot closer than the one before, in my opinion. But I just think that those 3 judges are very solid, honest, respectable judges. And, you know, Steve, sometimes it can work the other way. Everybody's talking about Canelo always gets these decisions. You know, maybe it's a close fight, and maybe we feel Canelo's got it, and they give it to Danny Jacobs this time.
Yeah.
But one thing I do know is they are fair and they are honest, and that's all we can ask for. You know, I mean, people talk about Golden Boy's power, and, you know, we got a fair bit of power as well now. You know, so like I think one of Gennady's problems in the past was it was like a one-man band, GGG, you know, Tom Loeffler and those kind of guys, great, but they weren't the powerhouse of Canelo. And, you know, people talk about corruption in sport boxing. That don't exist. I mean, I would know. I do 60 shows a year. Like, but when there is a huge commercial name and he's fighting in Vegas, sometimes with the crowd, with the atmosphere, these judges, they don't cheat. But of course, when you're sitting there at
You're
ringside and the
influenced.
place is going mad,
Sure.
oh, yeah, well, that was a close round. Well, that's a Canelo, you know. So we've got to make sure we put our point across in the rules meeting. But I'm very happy with that panel.
Eddie, every weekend in boxing, there are multiple shows. I mean, it takes me till Sunday night, Monday morning to actually get through everything. And my job is to watch everything. But with that said, there's certainly...
And isn't it a mad business that 95% of those shows are losing money?
Yeah, well,
it
there's a lot
really
of
is.
quantity. But I think you have to marry that with quality. And that's going to take guys like you, Bob Arum, Al Heyman, whoever else is involved to come together. Will we see more of that in the future? Because I know that you and Bob, no matter what you guys were saying a couple of weeks ago, you guys are actually making fights together here and there. How often can that happen?
Yeah,
How realistic is
Can
it?
the powers that be in boxing work together, even though it's fractured with its platforms?
Yeah, I think you have to really simplify this sometimes and not overthink it. It's very, very straightforward. We all sign network broadcasting deals where we're all paid a lot of money to bring our talent roster to that platform. Okay? So, for example, for Bob Arum to take Lomachenko or Terence Crawford off ESPN and make a fight on DAZN really isn't a good look for Bob Arum or Top Rank. For me to take Anthony Joshua or Danny Jacobs or Alexander Usyk off DAZN and make him on another platform isn't really a good look. And the same for Al Heyman. So everybody wants to put their biggest fighters and the best fights on their platforms.
Right.
There comes a time in people's careers where they kind of run out of places to go. And I think that Crawford's a guy who's in that position. Just boxed Amir Khan. Like, if Crawford doesn't start fighting Spence, Porter, Thurman, Pacquiao, his career is going to stagnate and his value is going to stagnate. I think it's a time where you go to the broadcaster and your partner to say, look, guys, like, we need to make this fight for boxing and we're going to start looking bad. We're going to start stagnating. So is there a model where ESPN and Showtime or Fox can do a dual pay-per-view here? And we do Terence Crawford against Errol Spence. It's a doubleheader. There's so much animosity between Heyman and Bob Arum that it's really like there's not even really a conversation to be had. When a fight becomes too big, Pacquiao-Mayweather, there's no escape. So they made that fight together.
Sure.
But there was nowhere to
Tyson
go.
Lewis,
yeah, but
right.
there was but Spence against Crawford is tiny at the moment
right,
in
at the
comparison
moment.
to Mayweather, Pacquiao,
Exactly.
and that kind of thing. So it's a tough one because
Not to deviate real quick or interrupt you, but who do you favor in that fight? Spence Crawford.
I talked to Mikey Garcia yesterday, and he was saying Spence surprised me. Not with his power, but just with actually how good he was and how smart he was with his feet. I rate Terence Crawford very, very highly. Oh, I don't know.
That's a real 50-50,
maybe Spence.
right?
Maybe Spence just because of the size. I don't think
Right.
Crawford's a huge welterweight, and I think obviously we have Kell Brook who had a great fight with Errol Spence, and the size and the strength on the inside. But that's a wonderful fight. Wonderful fight. And I
Kell
think
Brook was doing very well.
he was, yeah. I think the weight caught up with him, but after 6
Right.
rounds, he was winning the fight. But I think one of the problems with boxing is that there is too much ego. Like, it's a sport. It's such a terrible business, Mario. Like, I can't tell you. Like with the Jarrell Miller stuff. And stuff like what other business? Like, do you know how this last week? I mean, only now I'm coming through the other side, and I'm sort of
Right.
starting to think, oh, actually, life's not too bad. But
Yeah.
just because people think, oh, you're flying over there and you're in LA and you're doing well. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes I think to myself, why don't I just go and just get a 9 to 5? Come out of work, go
Boring
home,
would
see
that
your
be,
kids.
Eddie?
I know it would, but it's like, and that's why I admire people like Bob Arum. He's 87 years old.
Don King.
Don King.
Yeah.
But
Keeps him
how
going.
do you keep? But you can't help but be bitter. Like, Bob is very bitter, right? And there's like this evil, but it's not his fault.
Yeah.
Like, I don't necessarily think he's not a nice guy.
Bitter
But
or salty?
both. Yeah, but it's like boxing does that to you.
Yeah.
And actually, that's one thing I'm scared of because I don't want to become that. My dad got out of boxing probably 20 years ago.
Yeah.
He was in boxing for like 10 years, did really well, like he's a Hall of Fame promoter. And he woke up one day and he went, I don't need this.
Wow.
I'm going to go and do the darts or the snooker. And it's like, now his life, like he looks at me, sometimes I'll be in the office and I'll just be sitting at my desk and he'll come in, he'll go,
Yeah.
boxing, son. I'm like, oh, Dad. Like, he's like, keep at it. Don't let him get you down. I'm thinking, oh, you're all right. He goes, I'm so glad I'm not in this anymore. Bye.
We talked about it prior to the show that I saw your dad on a special on Real Sports here, and it was a great piece on how he essentially created this phenomenon with darts, which I was like blown away as I was seeing it with thousands of people there. But He was into boxing. It was only 10 years. I thought he was into boxing.
Yeah, 10, 15 years, something like that. I mean, he promoted Lennox Lewis,
Yeah.
Chris Eubank, Nigel Benn, Nazim Hamed. You know, big fights, but
all
he
the
never
big stars.
he never cracked America. He never really attempted it.
Right.
So I'm like the first UK promoter that's ever got a significant deal, or really any kind of deal, to promote in the US.
Did you fall in love with it because your father was?
Yeah, I went to my first show. I was 7 years old, and I've been around boxing for over 30 years. And my only chance to spend time with him growing up was to
Right.
be at the shows, was to be in the gym. You know, I thought that one day I could actually be a fighter, but then realised I grew up with a silver spoon in my mouth. I had no chance, you know.
Right.
But I grew up in the gyms, at the shows,
Sure.
falling in love with the sport. You know,
Right.
although I can't say it's in my blood because it's not generationally, but
No, but the
you know,
characters
it
involved,
is,
and, there's nothing
and that's
like
why
it. Right.
there is nothing like it. And you know, I go to the darts sometimes, and there's 15,000 people dressed up in fancy dress, drunk. The atmosphere is incredible, but it doesn't fill me with that same feeling of a big fight.
There's
You
nothing
know,
like it.
and I remember
Right.
when I was growing up, I was probably like 14, 15. I was talking to my dad about boxing. He said, "Son, I can't really explain to you." He said, "If you could get 1% of the adrenaline that a fighter gets when they walk out for a big fight, you'd be a very lucky man." And like a lot of the time, I feel like I get like 60%, you know. And it's like it's a bug, boxing, but it's a bug to everybody that it touches. You've got the bug. You've definitely got the bug.
The energy, there's nothing,
There
and I've
isn't.
been to the Super Bowl,
Yeah,
World
no.
Series, that nothing
No.
matches. It's like the true gladiator. You're right.
But that same
and
bug,
then you start chasing it.
yeah, but that same bug bites me. It bites Aram. It bites
Right.
Heyman. It bites Don King.
Drives you.
Like, why do you think Don King is phoning me up 10 times a day trying to make this fight? The money, yes, but also it's just in him.
Exactly.
You know, he's just a
What he
hustler
is.
who loves boxing. You know, and boxing is probably one of the few sports that, like, at some point in my life, I will do what my dad did, and I will go, I'm done.
You don't see yourself as a Don King or Barry Marum?
No,
Really?
no.
Because you seem happy, and then I was
I'm happy.
surprised
Listen,
to
I'm
hear
happy. I love the sport.
you got a
I love
great
the
energy.
challenge.
You seem
Yeah,
happy.
the challenge for me is more about, you know, I grew up, going a bit deep here, but I grew up as Barry Hearn's son, right? So at school, even when I got my first job, like not with him, but for like a sports agency, it was always like, oh, you're Barry Hearn's son. You know, so the challenge for me has always been to outperform him. The challenge for me, our family business means everything to us, and that's why we're dangerous, because the work ethic won't be beaten ever, right? And it's not, we don't work for this big sort of company. We're not funded by an investor, like where it's not really our money. This is everything to us. So I won't be outworked ever, right? But it's so intense, and the drive is so intense to globally expand this business to a stage where Matchroom is unquestionably the #1 promotional company in the world and dominates the sport of boxing. It's a bit sick, really, but that's the mindset, right? So I'm not there. I'm nowhere near there, and this is a new challenge for me. I've conquered the UK. I won't take my eye off the ball, but now this is where the drive says, okay, now go and do it in America. Take over in America, and that's where I'm going to struggle, and that's where I'm up against so much resistance, because those people in the game here are going, don't let Hearn in.
Right.
He's British. What does he know about America? Nothing at all. And they're probably right, but that's the new challenge. So when that is done, and it will be done, now there will come a stage where I'll say getting out will be the hardest thing, because getting out is surrendering as far as I'm concerned.
See,
It's about saying, I'm out. Guys, Bob, Al, it's yours, my friend. I'm done. See you later. And I know that one day I'll be sitting, you know, in that house on my rocking chair thinking, and I know my dad's doing it, you know, because he'll phone me up like the drill. Who we got? What's happening? I said, Dad, don't worry about it.
So he's still into it.
Oh, no, yeah, but he's like, I've just been on Box Rec. What about this guy? I'm like, Dad, he retired 3 years ago. You know, he's like, but it's in him at the same time. He'll never leave you. But it's you get to the point in your life where you have to go, you know, everyone's driven in different ways. But it's the same with you.
Yeah.
It might be ratings, might be a massive job, but at some point you'll go, you know, the fire's burnt. And when the fire goes out, that's always time to leave.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I mean, it's burning like my hair's singeing.
I plan to be like a Dick Clark and Bob Arum and be there until my 80s.
Yeah, maybe. But I do think there's a real nice time in your life. Listen, I'm only just about to turn 40. I'm miles away. But where you go, and I see it in my dad, you know, where he's got his darts, he's got his snooker, he's happy as Larry. You know, go down and do a bit of fishing, no real stress in his life.
Yeah.
And I look at him, I think,
Nah.
but he's earned it.
Yeah.
You know, he's 70. So you have to go through this
Still
process.
young.
And
Still young. I'm sure he's incredibly proud of you as far as what you have been able to accomplish. And to me, it seems like you're gonna kill it here. Young guy, handsome guy, charming, and well spoken and articulate. And I was like, and I've been a fan from afar. I've told you that. But yet I was surprised to hear that you're not always embraced in the UK and polarizing. Why? Where is that coming from?
I just think the UK mentality. So I've got this thing here where when I get on the mic, like, but they don't really do it in the US. You know, with HBO and that, they never really interviewed a promoter after. They did it with Bob last week. If there's something, but in the UK, after every fight, they'll go, now, hear a few words from Eddie.
Yeah, no, I've seen that, but
boo, like everyone
I've seen, and I'm like,
kind of like,
why aren't they rooting?
I like to think it's a little bit pantomime, but it's a bit of both. So what it is in the UK is, on the way up, they love you. They love you. When I got into boxing, I turned over the old guard in the UK. Frank Warren, Mick Hennessy, Frank Maloney, all these people. I came in and they were like, who's this young guy? Like, he's putting on shows, there's music, there's dancing, it's like the production's excellent. Then you become the top dog, and then you are Dr. Evil. So I'm the guy charging.
So they want you to
money
succeed, just not too much.
That's what you just said.
We were just talking about that.
What you just said there is you couldn't. I always say that to AJ. They want you to do well, but not too well.
Every time I tweet,
exactly.
That's the difference between the US mentality. They don't care in the US. I don't think people
they
begrudge you in the US like they do in the UK when you hit success. Like Frank Bruno was a national icon because he couldn't win a world heavyweight title.
He did well.
Right? Then he won a world heavyweight title.
Right.
And he was like, oh, he's won it. It's like, what?
Right.
It's like, oh, I can't believe it. What? Bruno's world champion.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, but, he's the guy who couldn't do it. Tim Henman, the tennis player, at Wimbledon. It was like, go on, good old Tim. And like Andy Murray.
Yeah.
Good old Andy. There's another one.
Henry Cooper.
And he wins it. And they're like, oh, my God, Andy Murray's won Wimbledon.
Eddie.
It's like, oh, I hate him. It's like, what?
I hate him. Because I see your fights and I see, I go, what? Did he do something I'm not aware of?
Well, Henry Cooper,
why are they
do the
where's
same
this coming
thing.
from?
Henry Cooper, the best thing he ever did was never winning a big fight.
Exactly.
And it's interesting. Every time I tweet about
So
Eddie Hearn,
weird.
whether I talk to you and I tweet or something that you make an announcement, half the people are earn with Hearn.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
The other half, I don't believe a bloody word he says.
It's
interesting.
It's like the inside people, like the hardcore fans, won't really like me because I'm trying to appeal the sport to a mass audience, the casual audience.
But how's that bad?
Because they don't really get it. They don't want. Like they always go. They'll tweet me and go, "Oh, I suppose it's another super light show at your thing with like if we put a band on or what an absolute joke." Now there's a music act. So this is like Hearn all over. It's like no, we're just trying to grow the sport to a wider audience.
Yeah.
That's why tonight at the Forum, tonight's a trade card. Right. It's like for
I like
the
you brought it
hardcore-
back.
Yeah, but for the hardcore fans,
Yeah.
it's like wow. You're saying, everyone's saying to me, this is like one of the cards of the year.
Yeah.
I'm getting people on my social media going, who are they?
Yeah.
Should we run this side?
Right.
What rubbish are you putting on now, Hearn? It's like
TIE
actually, it's
fighter.
like a rematch of a fight of the year. The guy's Ring Magazine's pound for pound great. Rubbish. Never heard of him.
Right.
But that's all right. You just social media is something that social media got us to really. It changed our position in the sport. It was so important and integral to our growth and what we were trying to do within the sport that you just, I would love to turn it off now, but you can't because you can't get there and then go, actually. Like that's why I never.
It's part of the fabric
Our
now.
social media teams, like, I don't know, a dozen people, they will say, do you want us to handle your account? I'm like, no, that's everything against what we are.
So you
We're
actually do
accessible.
it.
Yeah. We're accessible.
Right.
And it's painful because I laugh with my dad sometimes. He goes, how do you do it? He says, I used to do a show, right, when I was younger, and we'd finish the show and we'd go, great night, let's go and get a few beers. Now you do a show and you have to read 100,000 comments of one guy might say, that was rubbish. And you're thinking, rubbish, I've worked for 3 months on this show. I thought, give up, Hearn, you're a con man, you're this, you're that. And you think,
that's
and
just social media in general,
it
though.
is, but
Regardless,
you have to have the mindset
right
to be that driven about what you're trying to do. To almost, you can't ignore it, but at the same time, you can't let some guy with no ambition on a couch eating a pizza tell you what's wrong and right in your life.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Especially a fighter.
Absolutely.
Imagine being a fighter.
Right.
You're this. You're rubbish. Amir Khan last week. You got no heart. You're a quitter. It's like says the guy who's just in his mum's spare room. You know, just ordered his 7th domino.
Right.
So it's like, it's very hard, social media, but you have to embrace it because it's a massive tool.
Eddie, final question for me. Every time I call you, text you, email you. You're on a different, not place, different continent. How often do you travel? And when was the last time you flew coach?
I haven't flown coach for a long time, but I'll tell you
Figured
what.
that.
But I will tell you something: is that luckily, like my dad is from not a very good neighbourhood, right, as you'd call it over here. So he's a real working class guy. I think he was so petrified when I was growing up of me being that like snotty nosed public school boy with money. Like that was the person that when he grew up, he hated more than anything in the world. So like he drummed it into me years. Like he took me to gyms to fight. Like he would make me clean his shoes. He would make me clean his cars.
So
like
smart.
and he would pay me, but like
Sure.
50 pence or like a dime or this kind of stuff, because he was petrified of me. Luckily, I've got his mentality and his work ethic, right? So the time zones and stuff like that, it's a really weird thing. But I've recently, like, I've gone to buy a ticket, for example, and it's been $10,000 for a business class flight, and in economy or premium economy, it's 1,500. And like, it's a funny story. It was only a couple of months ago. I went, I ain't spending that. I'll go premium economy. I'm 6'5", right? I'm 240 pounds. So I'm sitting there, and it was on a flight to it was to Philadelphia, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like,
Right.
literally,
Right.
I couldn't put my heels on the floor
Right.
because I couldn't get my knees in, and I'm like,
Tall people
literally, I
problems.
got off. I couldn't walk like for a day, and my dad just turned around to me. He's like, "What are you doing?"
Right.
I'm like, "Yeah, but Dad, we saved $8,500." He's like, "Yeah, but you can't walk."
Right.
I'm like, "Yeah, but that's the mindset, you know." So
Yeah.
it's like traveling coach and stuff like that. You know, I think it's always so important to try and maintain that value and that work ethic. In terms of time zones, I don't really know where I am, you know, but that's actually a good thing, because you forget where you are. Like now, because of the US business, I work all day till 6 or 7 p.m. and then from 7 p.m. till maybe 2 or 3 in the morning, you know, the East Coast is on it, and then the West Coast wakes up. But we're 8 hours behind. So when you come into work or when you're getting going in your day at 10, it's 6 p.m. at night. So people are calling me. Like I'll wake up in the mornings and I'll have 20 missed calls, but they're all coming in from mainly you, Steve.
Yeah.
You know, asking me questions. but that's,
Dan.
You know, so it's like, I think the hardest thing is to give everybody the time that they need.
Yeah.
So like when you wake up and there's 20 missed calls and 20 emails, you sort of try and deal with that. And then UK calls are coming in. So a lot of people now say, "Oh, you never call me back." Like I'm like, I'm trying. And that is trying to maintain the talent roster as well, because we've got a great team of staff, probably 50 staff now worldwide. But a lot of them want to speak to me, the fighters. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, even tonight we got like Austin Williams debut and stuff. Like, I want to be with him. Like I want to enjoy that moment of his debut. But then I might be doing an interview or seeing Rungvisite, and I'm like running back, going, "Ammo! Like we're here." So it's just about maintaining. The growth of the business has been so rapid that just trying to cover all bases, because I like to be involved with everything. Like whether it's the design of a poster, whether it's what our Matchroom account is tweeting, whether it's a new office in Milan or, you know, in these other markets. I like to be so involved. You can't do it. You have to delegate. And that's painful for me, because like now it's a case of a poster will come out that our team, I'm like, "Oh, who done that?"
Right.
It's like, well, the design team. It's like, no one told me about how I wanted this to look. It's like, Eddie, we're doing 8 posters a day.
Yeah.
Like, no. Yeah, and it's just,
Yeah.
it's understanding the growth, really, because we used to have a team of 5 people, you know, just in our office in the UK. Now we've got, like I said, 50 worldwide, and it's handing over the responsibility, even matchmaking. I've always done all our matchmaking.
Wow.
In the UK. I've studied boxing for 30 years. I know every fight, every fighter. And
That's
it's like Eric Botcher's our matchmaker.
Yeah.
He's a very, very well respected matchmaker. And I must drive him mad. So I'm like, "Who's he fighting?" And he's like, "So and so." I go, "Yeah, but he's coming off 3 losses." He goes, "How do you know that?" I said, "Because I know." He's like, "Yeah, but he's a..." And I'm just sort of, I don't know, I must be a nightmare. But again, it's that passion.
No, of
and
course.
like,
And
you know,
that's
being
what
across everything.
drives
But
success.
it's tiring as well. So delegation is hugely important.
Well,
It's a bit of a waffle from your question.
no.
Steve.
I
really know.
loved it.
Yeah.
Listen, I can continue to talk to you for another couple of hours and stuff. I know you've got so much to do, but congratulations, seriously, on everything.
Thank you.
The way you manage the business, and I know as a family man too how difficult it is. You don't want to go home and give your family leftovers, and been able to balance everything. Kudos to you. Looking forward to the fight tonight. for the fight next. Was it next week
Next
already?
week.
Next
yeah,
week.
can't wait.
So it's an exciting time right now for this.
Well, if Danny Jacobs does the business like I believe will, you will see a typical Hearn celebration, which has been ridiculed in the UK. There's loads of them where I will just be over the top rope.
I was there when
Yeah.
sitting close to you when Kell Brook beat Sean Porter.
Oh yeah.
So that was a
Hello.
good one.
Yeah,
I got
that
to
was
see Warriors.
massive night for us.
I was
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
at you
I know.
and looking at
I
the
know.
fight at the same time.
That was one of those where Buffer. No, it was Jimmy Lennon that night, and it's like, and the winner. And no, and it's like, it was an
And
amazing.
tonight,
StubHub.
I believe Estrada Secret will be better than the original.
I-
I'll go on the
I've
record.
got a
There you
funny
go.
feeling for
Yeah.
Estrada tonight. I
So
don't know. Yeah,
I'm
I
going
don't.
with
Godfather
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Good one.
Yeah.
All right, so Eddie, thank you for
Thanks,
coming
guys.
in.
Thank
I'll
you very
see
much.
you later tonight. Mario, well, I've seen you the whole week, and I'll probably see you again
Yeah.
next week.
Oh, God,
What a
I'm-
busy week we've had.
Yes, I think I've seen enough, but okay.
Yeah, I feel the same. So anyway, that's the 3 Knockdown Rule. We want to thank Eddie Hearn for joining us in
Hey,
studio.
excellent.
Thank you.
On behalf of Mario Lopez and Justin Buffalo Knuckles, this is Steve Kim saying goodbye, everybody.